Today is the 29th of October 2018. It's Tuesday. It's exactly 1 week before Americans go to the polls for the midterm elections. It is my hope that every black American who is registered to vote will go to the polls and vote. Even in the blue states where the election is secured and the Republicans have no chance of victory, still go vote. Definitely vote in those contested races to change the path of the American political system right now. If you can if you can go to the polls on the day of the polls and register, go to the polls and vote on the day of the polls to register. I know you can do that in the District of Columbia, so go out and vote. This is a essay I wrote last year, and I'm to bring about the interest in the midterm elections. This is the Black Blogger reading that essay again today. Black people need new political alternatives or choices besides the current two-party system. Maybe people of color need to look beyond the broken political system that currently exists in this country. The party of Lincoln, the grand old party, the Republican Party, was also the party that abandoned black people in the South when over 90% of our ancestors who were recently freed resided in the South. Only 20 years after the end of the Civil War, only 7 years after the last civil rights, Civil War amendment was passed, the 15th Amendment, the Republican Party abandoned any attempt to bring civility and equal rights to people of color in the southern states with the Compromise of 1877. They allowed Jim Crow, Jane Crow, and all the other asinine crows to be inflicted on our black ancestors by systematically and intentionally terminating any moves towards Reconstruction with that compromise in 1877. This ushered in another 100 years of a system that denied equal rights to people of the darker hue. Some say that that system is still in full effect now with the mass incarceration of black men and women across this nation. They say that more black men are incarcerated than were enslaved. What I might add is that mass incarceration started with the policy of a democratically elected president and Congress. So it seems that not only was the Democratic Party the black lynching party, the white mob party, the burning black people at the stake party, the party of Jim and Jane Crow, and the party of white Southerners, the Dixiecrats, designed to rain terror on people of color. It is now designated as the incarcerating black people's party. It has been said also that there are really no true political advocates for people of color in either of these two parties, whether they be donkeys or elephants. The saying is that we are forced to vote for the lesser of two evils because history has shown that our communities, when they are in truly need, true, when they are in truly when they are truly in need, the majority of our political leaders, whether they be Democrat or Republican, have been absent from the fight. The Democratic and Republican parties have both been responsible for the current economic plight of black people in this nation. When only $6 or 6 cents of every dollar or $6 of every $100 revert back into the black community since the Integration Bill or the Civil Rights Bill of 1964 and the Voting Rights Bill of 1965, then both parties has failed us, not just one party. We need as people, we as people need to get real-time history lessons and real-time reality checkups because neither of these political parties has benefited us in terms of actual progress. Yet right now, the Republican Party has shown not only the stripes of a tiger, but have shown that that tiger is infected with the racist strand of rabies and as was so eloquently stated by Kanye West, they simply don't like black people. Of course, Kanye was indicting one Republican, and Kanye himself has changed, and now he's wearing a Make America Great hat and seemingly confused about the direction that he has taken politically, and he wants everybody else to follow his misdirection. Personally, I think we need to indict the entire current band of miscreants who are in Washington, D.C. right now. Maybe Malcolm X was right when he said that black people, and only black people, focused on common objectives should enter a room and hash out a realistic solution or solutions to the issues facing our communities. Malcolm said that we can either create an army to protect our rights or we need to create independent parties separate from either the Republicans or the Democrats. Alabama assisted in the creation of the initial Black Panther Party. They intended to take over Lowndes County's elective administrative offices with the use of the panther as their symbol of symbol against oppression, their symbol of movement. The movement then morphed into the Black Party for Self-Defense, which was which came from the Bay Area in California. We all know that that party was utterly destroyed by government infiltrators as well as the direct federal, state, and municipal government attacks, both physical and also through the investigative arm of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. The party in power at the height of the destruction of the Black Party in California was the Republican Party. It was also the party in charge of the nation. Ronald Reagan was the governor of California at the time, and Richard Nixon was the president. We need resolutions fast, otherwise, we will slip so far behind progressively, we will never be able to make this race of equality equal. The Republican Party, if they haven't already, will control all three aspects of the federal government: judicial, executive, and legislative. We saw through the passing of the nomination of Brett Kavanaugh, the Republican Party really doesn't care about having a just court system. And currently, Donald Trump controls the executive division of government, and the Republicans, the do-nothing Republicans, control the legislative branch of our federal government. The Republicans are also close to controlling the number of state governments needed to mandate a constitutional convention. The last constitutional convention was held in 1787 through 1789, and it left blacks with a status of three-fifths a person and absolutely no rights that white people had to respect. Can you truly imagine Paul Ryan, Mitch McConnell, and Donald Trump controlling the destiny of all minority Americans? We need to really talk about that and think about that at our kitchen tables in the morning and at our dinner tables at night. The Civil War amendments, the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments to the United States Constitution, are being threatened by a movement to reconvene a constitutional convention. The last constitutional convention was held in 1787, and anyone who has any concept of American history knows that that convention turned black people into cattle. As I said earlier, we were designated as three-fifths a person with no more rights than a herd of horses or pigs in a pen. If you haven't noticed, the Republican Party has been focusing hard on taking over state legislatures and government houses throughout the country. Many have already hinted that certain elements of the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments need to be revisited. If you don't think they have their eyes set solely on the prize of eliminating the so-called Civil War amendments, you're fooling yourself. I mean, they even talk about reinstituting slavery as if it never left. You are indeed sadly misinformed if you believe that they won't touch the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments if they have a chance. You have your head stuck in the sands and you're either stupid or ignorant. So the upcoming election on Tuesday, the 2018 midterm elections, will most likely decide the fate of whether or not the Republicans will get their wish and wipe from the Constitution all protections that were installed to ensure any level of equality for people of color in this nation. Those three amendments, which were ignored for nearly a century and have already been watered down by our federal judiciary ever since, was the basis of making our current U.S. Constitution bearable to all citizens in this country and not just the chosen few. Can you imagine in your mind not having equal protection under the law? Not having the right to vote being protected. In many states, they're unprotecting the right to vote. Can you truly imagine no barrier to bondage? Well, if the majority of Americans don't wake up soon, that possibility can be more probable with each passing election season. The black man, the black man's the black man who reads aloud the Black Man blog today seeks to instruct those who don't understand how this can happen because of voter non-participation. If you don't watch out, the worst of what is on the horizon for minorities won't be the presidency of Donald Trump. It will be a complete reversal of those essential amendments that were guaranteed for our ancestors after 2 centuries of enslavement. Just how many states are required to have a constitutional referendum passed? I believe that number is either 33. Currently, the Republicans control 32 state houses of the 50 possible state legislatures. In the past 7 years, the Republican Party has increased legislative control from 10 state houses in 2010 to the current number of 32. At the current rate of the remaining 18 possible legislative state houses not under Republican control in 2018, 26 state houses of the 32 state houses currently controlled by Republicans will be up for election next week. This means that the Republicans would have to win a total of 27 state house elections required that would force a constitutional convention. Don't you even believe that they won't try to force a constitutional convention if given the chance, especially if they continue to control the executive, legislative, and judicial branches of our federal government. We all know that that is the intention of the Republican Party to roll back constitutional guarantees for minority citizens in this country. That is why the midterm elections are vitally important. We simply cannot allow this current Republican Party to gain that sufficient number to force a constitutional convention that would place every amendment related to our constitutional privileges in jeopardy. So if you haven't registered for the upcoming 2018 midterm elections, well, you missed out on the chance to protect your future unless you have on uh, unless you can register to vote at the same time that you go to vote on Tuesday. If you are registered to vote and you have early voting in your state, go and vote. You don't have to wait until next Tuesday. Also, it's vitally important to actually utilize the voting privilege you have as a black American citizen. You see now what can happen when you decide not to participate. We ended up with the current resident in the White House rolling back environmental supports, economic support, health and welfare supports, militarizing urban police departments, rolling back educational supports, and packing the federal courts with individuals who are not focused on providing judicial protection for all Americans. We cannot wait until 2020 for the presidential elections to rouse those who are tied to special interests to strengthen control on all sectors of the state, municipal, and federal government agendas. So now we have just 1 week left until we get to that general election. Michelle Obama says we should have some voting groups. We need to have voting groups, and beyond that, we need to make sure that every American, every black American who's registered to vote takes advantage and votes. Let's focus our energies on securing those those our best possible candidates available now to run for political office. Our black communities must begin to look beyond blind allegiance to one specific party without getting comprehensive plans and programs that will uplift our communities nationwide. I truly wish that we could have some degree of faith in the Republican Party and not simply spend all of our political cash on the Democrats. But the current political climate demands a close evaluation of how that party, the Republican Party, plans to redeem itself or move away from the current stockholders who seem to have no real concern for people of color. This is my political feature on the Tuesday before Election Day on the Black Man's Blog related to the ballot or historical minority flight and its effect on the 2018 midterm elections. Dr. Martin Luther King envisioned before he was murdered in Memphis, Tennessee, a coalition of people of all colors with common interests determined to see some type of redistribution of wealth in this nation. He was demanding payment on that non-sufficient check when he organized the Poor People's Campaign. That's why Martin Luther King Jr. was murdered in Tennessee, because they understood that his choice was a dangerous choice. Martin Luther King also understood a choice of two evils was simply no choice at all. So we must collectively force our political voices to address the needs of the many, not just be concerned with continuing to fill the pockets of the few. The only way this can happen is for those voices to understand that the votes of the many can and will demand changes. So go to the polling booths and make that statement. That statement can simply be, we will not be satisfied today, tomorrow, next year, or the next decade, or the next 2 decades until real changes are proposed and implemented to change the course of this nation. This has been the Black Blogger on Tuesday, the 30th of October 2018, one week before Election Day. Have a great day.